Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on what's new in SolidCAM 2017 Part 1. And we'll be talking about the stuff that's new in 2.5D and some of the general options that we have inside of SolidCAM. I'd just like everyone to also know that the SolidCAM 2017 Service Pack 1 Hotfix 3 is now also available on our website to download. Also, a quick reminder about the webinars. You'll be able to ask questions. If you note on the question pane you have on the side, you can ask questions, write down your questions, and towards the end of the webinar, I'll go through the questions and answer them as best as I can. Also, the webinar is being recorded, so you'll be able to refer to the webinar again later on. And I will also be attaching the parts to that recording so you can also practice on the parts according to the way I've done it inside the webinar itself. Okay, so let's get ourselves started with the webinar. Okay, the first thing I'd like to actually start out with in this webinar is a new option that we've added for our geometries. This new option is called Smart Face. So let me explain exactly what this does. If we take a look at the part that we have on our screen, you'll see the following. What I'd like to do is I'd like to machine out this pocketed area over here. Now I can do it using our pocket operation or iMachining operation. And when we create the geometry, and I'll use the iMachining for this particular case, when I create the geometry, what we normally have to do in order to create this geometry is, you note that I have this pocket over here, which has open edges on it. Okay, so if I were to, and I also have islands inside this area that create geometries around those islands. I have a semi-open area over here, so I have to create a geometry around that. I have holes, which I do not want to create geometry around those holes. So what I'd normally have to do is I'd probably click on this edge over here to create that geometry, as you've seen. And now let me just get rid of the show chain and working plane. I still have to mark these open edges. So what I would have to do is I'd have to right click on my first chain and then go mark open edges and then start clicking on the edges that I want to have open. This is the way I used to always have to work. Click on that edge over there, click on that edge over there, that one over there, continue on to that edge over there. And this is actually a relatively small pocket, but imagine if this was a larger pocket, how much clicking you'd have to do to mark all those open edges. Okay, so I've done that. And if I want to create more geometries, I then click on this edge over here. Then I click on this edge over here. And then if I want to go, I will click on this area over here. And then again, this area from over here, I would have to mark as an open edge. So again, I go over here, mark open edges. And this time I can use the option, say, from two entities, click on that edge over there to that edge over there, and we've completed it. Now you saw how much work I've had to do just to create those few geometries. Okay, let me go out of here for a moment and go back in to start creating again. Now some people would say, you know what? Okay, I'll click on the face to get all of my chains and then get rid of them. So some people would say, you know what? Let's go to multi-chain. But if I choose multi-chain and I click on this face, I would still have to then later on create open edges for that, and then also delete all of the holes, which I do not want to have as a geometry. What we've added here to make this a lot easier now is simple. As default in all our pocket and iMachining operations, we have an option here called Smart Face. And this works in conjunction with our regular chains. What this does is very simple. When I click on this face, it'll automatically give me the chain for the outside geometry. Note, it'll also automatically give me the open edges. It'll also pick the chains for all the studs that I have over here. And for the semi-open, it marked whatever was open and what's closed. And you'll also note that it did not choose any of the holes or through pockets as shown over here. So creating a geometry now is very simple. One click, you have all your open edges, you have all your studs, and it ignores all the holes as well. Now, these are also regular chain geometries. So if I wanted to edit this chain geometry, I have no problem doing that as well. For example, this chain over here, I'm saying to myself, you know what, I'd rather have this as one closed chain over here. So I'll just go to that chain and I can replace it. This is just a simple chain geometry. And then I'll click on this edge over here to get that chain over there. So creating geometries today is a lot simpler, the chain geometries. So again, we'll go back in here, click on this face, and there you have it. Continue working now, no problem. We'll choose our tool. Okay. At this point, it's not really that relevant. I'll choose this particular tool over here, a 10mm end mill. We have our levels, technology, everything else is the same. I'll do save and calculate. And you can see I have all my tool paths created. You can see all the open edges where it goes outside the open edges over here. And that's done at a simple, the geometry created on a simple click of the face. And let's take this even one step further. I'm going to do save and copy. Let's get rid of the show geometry chains, the show geometry toolpath. And I'd like to create more geometries now. This time I'd like to create it on these areas on top over here. So again, I'll create my geometry. And look how quickly this goes. Click on this face, this one over here, this one over here, this one over here, and this one over here. You'll note all of the open edges are created. I don't have to go back to each one of these individually and start creating my open edges. Except that, just check my levels, everything is fine, and there we have it. Now, I'd like to take this now to the next step. You'll note on this particular part, I have areas such as this. Okay, these little steps over here, going around the part. What I'd like to do is I'd like to create a profile operation. Now, when we create a profile operation, I don't need open edges because all I need is just this edge over here going around the part. Okay. How can we use the smart face for this? Oh, by the way, before I even continue, the smart face has the settings. I said it was default as far as the pocket and eye machining operation. If I were to go into my SolidCAM part, if I go into my CAM settings, and we go into our geometry defaults, you'll note we have our smart face settings is checked for pocket and eye machining. You can also check it for profile. And in a moment, you'll see what it does for us inside profile. Okay, let's cancel this. And let's start now with a profile operation. We'll go to profile. Click. Now, the way you would normally do it in a profile operation is you probably get rid of these options over here of tangent propagation and constancy propagation. And I would click, say, on this edge over here, and then continue one step at a time by clicking on the add selected until I get to where I need it. Accept it, then continue on down the line again. Go to this edge over here, continue on down the line to create the rest of that chain. This is the way I would have done it up until today. Okay? Again, I don't want that. Okay. what I would do today is use the option of Smart Face. Again, you see, because I had it set for Smart Face default for checking, it's on. And when I click on this face over here now, on that floor, it'll give me the geometry, the change geometry for all the walls associated with that face. So I clicked on that face, I got the walls for that face. Same thing for over here. Go down the line over here, and even bothering looking at the whole part. Just go down and click on this face over here, this face over here, this one over here as well. It's hard for me to see from over here. I can see from over here as well. Just do a click over there. Click on this face over here. And then we have all our geometries. Accept that. Just choose my tool. Excuse me. I choose a 6 millimeter end mill. We have our levels. That's all set. Technology. I'm just going to leave it exactly the way it is. We have our links. Let's just change it to tangent. Save and calculate. And there we have our toolpath for every single one of those. Let's have this our lead out the same as our lead in. Calculate that again. And there we have it. Our geometries were created simply by just clicking on the face, making the choosing of geometries a lot quicker and easier. Run a quick simulation on this. I'll even do it using Solid Verify. And you can see the tool goes down and machines every one of those areas exactly the way it's supposed to. Okay. Now, while I'm in this window, let me just also point out one more note. We have our SolidCAM Manager on the side, on the left-hand side, and our tabs on top. All of them now support 4K. So if you have users that have 4K monitors, we now support them in 4K resolution as well. Also, the icons on our tabs on top, as well as in the SolidCAM Manager, also supports the classic view color scheme of SolidWorks. So if you wanted to change this to the old classic view, all you have to do, just like in SolidWorks, you go to your options, colors, and you have icon colors. Change that to classic, accept that, and then when you close the program and then come back into the program, your icons will be in the old classic colors if that's the way you like to work. So this works exactly just like SolidWorks has that. It works the same as in SolidCAM. And again, we have 4K resolution, so anyone who works with a 4K screen will have the proper resolution for those colors. And as you can see, we have now the classic colors as before. Open up the part, and we're ready to go. Now, another option that we've added, let's open up that part again. We've now created the option. You can see very clearly now all the new, the classic color icons. Okay. Another option we've added inside SolidCAM for creating geometries is when you created a geometry before, the only way to create a geometry was to actually go inside the operation, create a geometry, and then you would have the geometry. But if you went into, let's say, a template, or one, you would have to create the geometry, and then it would be a whole bit different story how to do it. So today we were able to create a geometry outside of the operations itself. And we're talking about 2.5D geometries. To do that, we go to our geometries over here, right click, and we can add geometries, face, profile, pocket, drill, thread mill, T-slot, the 2.5D geometries that we need. Create a face geometry, not a problem. Profile geometry, pocket geometry. Let's do a pocket geometry, for example. And for example, I like to do this pocket over here. And I have that geometry created. How does that help me? You see, by the way, I have now, it's called Contour 3. If I were to go, for example, to my templates and open up a template, and I have a template here, say, an open pocket template with an arc lead in. I'll open up that template, choose my geometry that I just created, my depth if necessary, and click on OK. Save and calculate, and I have my geometry or my template already with my geometry and everything else needed as well. So we can now create geometries outside of the operation. Okay. Next. We've created now the option inside of 2.5D milling in our profile operation, the option of multiple levels for upper levels as well as the depth. Previously, up until now, when we created a profile operation, we had our technology, we had our levels, milling levels, we had the option of variable, but the variable was only set for profile depth. We now have it for our upper level as well. For example, if I were to say create a geometry for my profile, and say that geometry was, let's do it on this area over here. Remember I have the smart face, so I'll just click on this area over here and this step over here. So I have two chains, one for this level and one for this level over here. Let me just choose a tool for now. We'll choose, I'll use the first tool I have over here. Now, when I go to my levels and I go to the option of variable, we have the option of upper level as well as depth. This is new. This we did not have here before. So if I go to my, say for example, my upper level on my first chain, I'd like to start it over here. For example, this is just again, just an example. And my second chain, I like to start it, say, from down here. Okay? My depth for my first chain, I like to have it up till here. And my depth for my second chain, I like to have it up to here. So now we have all of that as well inside our profile operation. And of course, we have our technology. Let's go down, step down every 1 millimeter. If we take a look at our toolpath that was created, you can see that our first operation started from on top over here, and my second operation started over here. First chain went down to this step over here, and to this level, to this depth, and my second chain went down to that depth over there. So now, as I said, we have the option of defining the upper levels in the multi-chain profile as well. Okay. Let me open up another part. Excuse me. And we've added an option inside our level page for our face, profile, pocket, drilling, thread mill, and slot. We've added the option for our upper plane to automatically choose the upper level as our stock or target. Now, where does that come in handy? For example, let's take a look at this part over here, and we'll take a look at the stock. Let me open up the stock for a moment, and you'll note that in the stock, the upper level, my Z, is 1 millimeter above the part. Now, there's no way for me at this point to actually pick it from on top over here. So I either have to remember it or create the sketch to use that. Okay. Now, let's do a face operation. We'll go to face. Okay. Now, we'll choose our tool. And we'll choose a face mill, for example. Let's go to our levels. In our levels area, we now have the option of either right before picking it over here, or we can actually go over here, click and say I want it by stock. Note when I click on by stock, this automatically changes to 1 millimeters, which is the level that my stock is at. Face depth up until that step over there, and that's we're set. Change this over here by target, no problem. By stock, takes on that level. If I go over here and I click on something, click on a level, it changes into user defined. Because the user defined it, I can easily go back, change by stock, and have everything exactly the way I need to work. Do save and calculate, and my toolpath was created. Okay, now, the next option that we've added is something called using predefined drill points for ramping points in a pocket operation. Okay, I like to create a pocket operation for these 3 pockets. And I've already created drilling operations for these holes over here. You can see them as I go along. Okay, for these counterbore holes over here, I've already created some drilling operations. Now, let's start with our pocket operation. We'll create the geometry for that. Click on that face. I love doing the face operation. Okay, just click on the face. We have our geometry. We'll choose our tool. And I have an 8 millimeter end mill I'm going to be using. Our levels up until that surface over there. Let's do this all in one step so we can see this very quickly. Now, if I go into my link page, we have our ramping. Ramping right now is set at none. That means it'll automatically ramp into the point where the start of the pocket is. We always had the option of also changing it to vertical, angle, and helical. If I change it to vertical, vertical allows me to choose the area where I want it to go in by going into points. Now, when I go into points, I want to go already where I have a predefined drill. But I cannot pick this. I was never able to pick the center of that hole because there's nothing to pick over there, just a through hole. So now we have the option of pre-drill operations. Okay? If I were to click on that, you see it jumped to that hole over there. But I want it for all the chains. So I can say, let's apply this to all chains. And you can see it now jumped to every single one of those holes over there. Okay, let me do this again from the very beginning. Okay, we'll do it over here. Pocket. So we can see this with a much better workflow. We have 1, 2, 3. Choose my tool. And I'll be using again my 8 millimeter end mill. Go to my links, my ramping. I'm going to have it at vertical. Let's do vertical points. Go directly to apply to all, and you'll see it'll jump directly to all those holes over there. Except that, let's do just save and calculate. What I did want to do is change my step down to 10 millimeters. Save and calculate. Let's run my simulation. And what you'll see, and I'll do it with Solid Verify, you'll see that the tool will go down on that hole itself. Let me do this slowly so you can see it. When it finishes this pocket, it'll then go to the next one and directly onto that area itself. Finishes that area, we're done over there. Okay, let me just fix up my geometry over here. Now I'll leave it the way it is. Now, what happens if I change this to helical? This is very interesting, actually. Again, over here, we have the same options. Apply to all. Save and calculate. Run my simulation. And you'll note the way it'll actually go into the pocket itself is that the center of the actual radius, of the radius of the helical is the center is actually the drill point. Let's do the Solid Verify, and you can see it going around that area over there. Okay, let's take a top view of this. You may be able to see just a little better. Okay, it finishes. Let's do this again from the very beginning so we can see this again. You'll see it goes down, and the center is around that hole itself as it works through the part, finishing that area, and does the same thing when it gets to this area over here as well. So we now have the option of using the drill points for the predefined drill points to go into your pocket operation for ramping. Now, let's continue with this part. We've also added an option, and let me go into one of these drill operations I've created over here. This one over here. Okay. Let me open that up. Or I'll actually open up the next one. Let's say right now I've used a regular drill for over here. And of my technology of note, we have our cycle for our drill. Let's say I was going to be using not a drill, but I want to use a tool, say a reamer, okay? Whatever reamer size I want to use, let's say 5.3 millimeters. I use the reamer tool. When I go into my technology, when using a reamer tool, it'll automatically default to the reamer cycle. All the other cycles are still available, but when I choose that reamer tool, it'll automatically now default to that cycle. Okay. Next, let me open up this little part over here. There we go. And what I'd like to do on this part is just on this face over here, create a chamfer operation using chamfer recognition. Now, note there's a little bit of a problem with this face. If I choose that face in chamfer recognition, that face is undercut over here. And normally your cutter, your chamfer cutter, would actually run into the possibility of nicking that edge over there. So we've added now an option called 3D model geometry protection inside our chamfer recognition. Let's choose the option of Chamfer Recognition. And we have here 3D model protection. I'll use that. I'll create my geometry. In this particular case, I don't want to do the whole part. I'll just do that particular face over here. Okay, click on that face. And you can see the geometry itself does go all the way to the end. However, when I choose my tool, okay, I'll use whatever tool I want to use, say a 6mm chamfer tool. I'll set my levels at, let's say, a 0.5mm chamfer. My technology, I'm going to keep my cutting diameter at 1mm, and I'll have a safety offset of 0.1 millimeters from the target itself. Let's do save and calculate. And if I run my simulation using Solid Verify, you'll note even over here in the back, let me turn the part around, where I have the undercut, okay, you can see that it stayed away from that edge and did not gouge the part itself. Same thing when it gets to the other side. It stopped just before there and then continues around the entire part, not gouging any of the edges. Had I not had the option of choosing 3D model protection, you can see for yourself, it would go past that edge and automatically and gouge into the part itself. But with 3D model protection, you can now do this without any fear of gouging the part. Okay. One more point I'd like to cover inside the webinar. We have something called drag update stock for specific operations. Let me open up a part. And I've already created operations for this part. So we can see this relatively quickly. Okay. Sorry, my mistake. Updated stock. Here we go. There we go. Okay. We have our operations over here. All of them already created. And we have the option here of updated stock. Now, we've had it before, but this was never calculated. This is now automatically calculated. And note, by simply clicking on the checkbox, we see our updated stock. And we have an icon that we can drag up and down to show it at any point what our updated stock is. Drag it down over here, you can see the next step. Further down over here, it'll go over here. If I were to click on an operation, you'll note that it stays down there. Why is that? Because if it's pinned automatically to that operation. However, if I want, I can always right-click on that icon and unpin it. When I unpin it, then when I go to click on an operation, it'll automatically jump up to that operation. Now, let's take a look at the updated stock at a different way. If I were to right-click on updated stock, we have the options over here of automatic calculation, but we also have the option over here of switch to rest material mode. If I were to switch to rest material mode, you will see it exactly according to the rest material. If I were to go down here, you can see exactly how the rest material looks in this particular case. Now, let me just continue on just with another operation over here. And I'd like to work on these counter bore holes. So I'll use the hole wizard process for those counter bore holes. Okay. I'll click inside. I can click right through it. Okay, we'll create our operations. Operations are being created. And you can see that if I were to go back down here, everything was updated very, very quickly. Right there, the speed that this works on is very quick. And the reason for that is that when you do calculate, the updated stock is automatically being calculated in the background using the multi-core of your computer. Now, okay, you may say this is a small part, so it's not working. You can't really see the speed. Let me load a different part, okay? We'll open up a different part over here. And you can see in this particular case, this part has 135 operations. Okay? Let me click again on updated stock. And you can see immediately I have the updated stock over here. Let me unpin it from this operation. I'll click on the first one. And you see how quickly it actually shows the updated stock. Click on a different operation. No matter where I click on which operation, it shows it immediately. This is a very good and very important enhancement that we've added, making it a lot easier for people to see exactly what they've done at any point of their machining. Okay. I am basically finished with this particular part of the webinar. If there are any questions, let me go through any questions that I may have over here. Okay. Okay. As far as the okay. Somebody asked me something in Chinese or Japanese, and I can't read that. So I think it's okay. I'll give you just a few more moments. Again, this webinar is being recorded and will be available later on after when the webinar is over, later on during the day, together with the parts. Okay. Okay. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for this webinar. There will be continuations with the next part with more webinars on SolidCAM 2017. In meantime, I'd like everyone to have a nice day, enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you at our next webinar. Again, take care and keep on going with the program. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.